At exactly 6:45 a.m., every single morning, the town of Sierra Brook kinda held its breath for a moment. And look, I know that sounds dramatic, but it's true. You could literally set your watch to it. Before the sun fully cleared the ridge, before the bakery even opened its doors, before most folks had finished rubbing the sleep out of their eyes, she would appear. A tiny girl, a faded blue jacket, and 5 massive K9s. Yeah, 5. Her name, well, nobody knew yet. People just called her the Little Forest Kid, because she always came out from the tree line behind Maple Ridge, and the way she walked, you'd swear she wasn't scared of anything. Like the cold didn't matter. Like the snow crunching under her boots didn't matter. Like the world itself didn't get to tell her how big or small she was supposed to be. And honestly, it freaked people out. You'd see someone sipping coffee on their porch, half awake, and then suddenly they'd just freeze. Their cup would kinda hover mid-air, like someone hit pause. Because it's not every day you see a 6-year-old girl walking 5 dogs that look like they just retired from a war zone. Titan, Ranger, Echo, Bolt, and Major. Not that anyone knew their names yet, but even without the names, you could feel what they were. You could feel the discipline, the seriousness, the intensity in the air. Picture this. They walked in formation, actual formation, Titan in front, slow and deliberate, scanning left to right like he was clearing a hallway. Ranger and Bolt took the sides. Major stayed behind, head low, ears sharp. And the smallest one, Echo, stuck right next to her like a shadow stuck to a flame. People whispered, "Time 300 tune. Are those police dogs?" Others said, "No way. Who'd let a kid handle that?" And some just shut their curtains and pretended they didn't see anything. But even if you didn't look, you could feel them pass. Something in the air shifted, like the temperature dipped, like the street got quieter, like the world respected them, without even knowing why. And the girl, man, there was something about her. She didn't talk. She didn't smile. She didn't even look around. Head down, hands small but steady on the leashes, steps perfectly in sync with the dogs. And I swear to you, if someone dropped a pin, one of those shepherds would whip their head around so fast you'd think they were hearing gunfire. People didn't get close. They didn't dare. One guy, Mr. Hendley, the hardware shop owner, tried to say good morning once, just once. Titan stepped forward with this low rumble, like thunder caught in a dog's throat, not attacking, just warning. And everyone around froze like statues. Hendley's good morning just died in his mouth. And the girl? She didn't even look at him, just gave a tiny whistle, so soft you barely heard it. And the dogs instantly shifted back into place, calm as ever, like she had snapped her fingers at fate itself. Honestly, the whole thing felt wrong, not in a dangerous way. No, the dogs clearly weren't out to hurt anyone, but in a way that said, This doesn't belong in a small mountain town with Sunday farmers markets. Because nothing matched. A child that young shouldn't walk with the posture of someone who's been through, I don't even know. Time for hun. Too much. Way too much. And the dogs, God, those dogs, moved like they had a purpose the rest of us couldn't see yet. Some mornings it was foggy, that thick white blanket that makes the whole road disappear. And still, like clockwork, the 5 silhouettes would emerge from the haze surrounding the smaller one in the center. If you didn't know better, you'd think she was some kind of high-value person being escorted through enemy territory. Actually, that's exactly what it looked like. And that feeling, that weird chill climbing up your spine even when the sun's out, the kind of feeling where you don't know if you should be scared or amazed or both. Yeah, that. That's how Sierra Brook felt every morning around 6:45. The weirdest part, though, she always walked the same path, same streets, same turns, never changed, never hesitated. Like she wasn't just walking through the town, she was walking around something, protecting something. Or maybe, just maybe, someone had once walked that exact route with her, and she was just keeping it alive. But no one knew, no one asked. People were too scared to step close, too unsure of what they were seeing to poke at the mystery. And honestly, if you'd been there, if you'd seen the way those dogs watched every shadow on every porch, you wouldn't have asked either. There was something else, too. Something small. But once you noticed it, you couldn't unsee it. The girl never came from a house. Not once. Never stepped out a door. Never came down a driveway. Always. Always from the forest. Like she lived there. Like the trees raised her. Like the dogs weren't pets. They were guardians. Time 900 mems. And maybe, though no one said it aloud, maybe they weren't guarding the town from her. Maybe they were guarding her from the town. Because deep down, everybody sensed one thing. A child that young doesn't walk with warriors like that. Unless she's survived something no child should ever face. If the mornings in Sierra Brook already felt strange, then what happened next I don't know. It just pushed everything into this whole new level of, wait, what did I just see? Because yeah, at first people thought it was weird. A tiny kid and 5 huge K9s. But by the second week, they realized something was off. And not like, oh, she must be a dog lover off. More like, something happened to this kid, and the dogs know it. It all started with Mrs. Hathaway. She lived in the yellow house on Pine Street, right on Aria's usual route. Sweet old lady, always smelled like lavender and apple pie. The type who bakes cookies for mailmen and talks to her plants like they're roommates. So anyway, one morning she sees Aria walking by and, being herself, she leans over the fence with this warm smile and goes, "Well, hey there, sweetheart." She didn't even finish the sentence. Titan, this giant, battle-scarred shepherd, stepped forward so fast that Mrs. Hathaway stumbled back a full step. Not because he growled or barked or anything loud like that. Nope. It was the eyes, the stare, sharp, cold, precise. Like he'd taken one look at her and evaluated every possible threat level within half a second. Poor Mrs. Hathaway's smile collapsed on the spot. I swear, she clutched her chest like she'd just remembered she left the oven on. And Arya? She didn't even react, didn't flinch, didn't apologize, didn't say a single word like he's friendly or sorry, he's protective. She just kept walking, like nothing happened. There was something so unsettling about the way she didn't look back. But that wasn't even the moment that shook Sierra Brook. No, the real punch-in-the-gut moment came the next day. It was a Wednesday. I remember because the trash truck always comes late on Wednesdays. And as usual, Arya appeared from the tree line. The blue jacket, the boots, the 5 dogs moving like shadows around her. She'd just turned onto Millstone Road when a delivery truck came rumbling down the hill. Engine loud, tires spitting slush. The kind of noise that would send any normal dog into a panic, or at least make them look. Not these dogs. Major, who had been walking behind her on the right, suddenly shifted. And I mean instantly. 1 second he's pacing behind her. The next, he slides clean into the left flank, placing his entire body between Arya and the passing truck. No hesitation, no confusion, just pure reflex. Like he'd done that exact move 1,000 times before. The driver waved, clueless about the little heart attack he caused for the townspeople watching from their porches. But the moment the truck passed, Major didn't move back. He stayed on her left side until she turned the next corner. And it happened again, and again, and again. Every time a car passed too close, every time someone walked too fast, every time something made a loud sound. Major shifted, Titan scanned, Bolt and Ranger widened the perimeter, and Echo, God. Echo was the most alarming of them all. Echo was the smallest K9, a nimble little thing with sharp eyes and ears that seemed permanently perked. She never, and I mean never, lost sight of Arya. If the others looked away, Echo didn't. If something moved behind them, Echo already knew. If a twig snapped, Echo would tilt her head like she could hear danger long before it arrived. And the weirdest part? She didn't act like a dog. She acted like a bodyguard. She kept her shoulder practically touching Arya's knee, matching her steps, glancing up at her face like she was constantly checking. You okay? You safe? You breathing? People started closing their blinds earlier. Not out of fear. Well, maybe a little fear. But mostly because nobody wanted to be caught staring. It felt rude, or dangerous, or both. And the rumors started. Those are retired police dogs. No, they're military K9s. I heard the girl's parents were FBI. What if she escaped from something? You ever seen how they move? That's not training you get from a YouTube video. But here's the thing that sent shivers down everyone's spine. The girl never acted like someone in control. She acted like someone being protected. Like she already knew something could happen. Any moment. any place, and the dogs were the only reason she could walk down the street at all. It was subtle, but once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. She walked slightly forward, but not ahead. Echo always stuck to her side. Titan always cleared the path. The others always watched the angles. It was a formation, a tactical formation. Not something you take on a morning stroll unless you've lived through, well, time 300 mouse stuff a kid shouldn't live through. And the moment people realized this, weird things started happening. Folks stopped waving, stopped greeting, stopped trying to be friendly. Nobody crossed the street in front of them. Nobody walked behind them too close. A couple of teenagers once tried to film her up close, but Titan turned his head so slowly toward them that they bolted like they'd seen a ghost. And honestly, I get it. Because every morning at exactly 6:45, Sierra Brook wasn't watching a child walk dogs. It was watching a unit move. A trained, coordinated, disciplined unit doing what it had clearly been taught to do. Protect Aria Wells at all costs. And something in all of us whispered the same thing. This isn't normal. This isn't cute. This is something else entirely. If the townspeople were already on edge, trying to pretend everything was fine, then Logan Hale showing up in Sierra Brook kinda flipped the whole situation on its head. Like everything suddenly had a pair of trained eyes watching it. And trust me, when someone like Logan watches something, he doesn't watch it like a normal person. He notices things, tiny things, details most people's brains don't even register. So anyway, one cold morning, right around that same exact 6:45 window, Logan was standing outside his new rental cabin. Coffee in hand, suitcase half unpacked inside, trying to convince himself Sierra Brook might finally be the quiet, stress-free break he needed. And yeah, that dream lasted about 12 seconds. Because he saw her. Aria, her tiny boots crunching across the frosted dirt road, the blue jacket, the braids, the 5 shadows moving around her like trained ghosts. And Logan just froze. Not in fear, not in confusion, but in recognition. No fucking way. He blinked. Once. Twice. Then stepped forward slowly, like he wasn't sure if his brain was messing with him, or if he'd just walked straight back into one of his old crime scenes. Because the formation, God, the formation, was unmistakable. Titan wasn't walking ahead. He was leading point. Like a SWAT K-9 clearing an active zone. Ranger and Bolt weren't on the sides. They were running flank patterns. Patterns Logan had only ever seen during raids. Hostage extractions. High-threat movements. The kind of stuff that keeps people awake at night. And Echo? Echo wasn't being clingy. Echo was running the close-quarter protection role, the exact position a K-9 takes when guarding a VIP in unstable zones. Logan's jaw tightened. He wasn't looking at 5 pets. He wasn't looking at a cute morning walk. He was looking at a security detail straight out of law enforcement protocol. Then Aria did something that made Logan's coffee cup slip in his hand. A car door slammed behind him, and without turning her head, not even a little. She made this tiny clicking sound with her tongue. Just a quick tick, tick. 3 dogs rotated positions instantly. Instantly. No hesitation. No confusion. No, what was that? This was surgical, controlled, precise. Logan whispered, "Oh, hell. That's MEU level handling. Marine Expeditionary Unit signals, the kind used by handlers in combat zones." Arya was 6. 6. Most adults can't even get a dog to sit without bribing it with cheese. Logan felt a cold ripple crawl up his spine. Not fear, but that old instinct he thought he'd buried years ago. The one that says, something bad happened here, and this kid is carrying all of it. He slowly lowered his coffee, watching her pass. Eyes narrowed. He didn't move closer, didn't call out, didn't risk alarming the dogs. He'd seen what happens when you push a working K9 formation. They react before you blink. But the thing that really hit him wasn't the dogs. It was her. The way she kept walking without scanning left or right. The way she didn't flinch when a tire backfired down the street. The way her shoulders stayed level, even though her hands were gripping 5 leashes that could have yanked her off her feet. Kids aren't like that. Kids don't move like that. Kids don't survive like that. Unless they've already survived something no kid should ever face. Logan exhaled slowly, stepping back into the shadow of his porch. His mind started doing that thing it always did, connecting dots nobody else even knew existed. Why would 5 K9s protect one child? Why does she know MEU commands? Why the forest? And where the hell are her parents? Questions piled up like snowdrifts, and every instinct in his bones said the same thing. There's a story here, a dark one. But the real punch was how the dogs reacted to him. Titan didn't growl. Logan could have handled that. Instead, Titan looked at him. Just one look. A slow, deliberate, measuring stare. You know that feeling when someone reads you so deeply you feel naked? Yeah, that. Titan seemed to know Logan wasn't just any random guy. It was like Titan sensed the experience on him. Like the dog was warning, "Don't interfere." But Logan Hale wasn't built to stay out of things like this. He wasn't wired for normal. He wasn't the type to see danger and pretend it was some quirky small-town mystery. He'd spent 12 years covering some of the darkest, most violent cases in the Midwest. He'd seen kids caught between monsters. He'd seen K9s trained to die for their handlers. He'd seen trauma so deep, it lived in people's eyes forever. And now, he was seeing that same look in a little girl who barely came up to his waist. "Damn it," Logan whispered, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "I came here to get away from this crap." But the universe didn't care. Times 700 psalms. Because as Arya disappeared around the bend, the dogs melting into the fog behind her, Logan already knew one thing for sure. He wasn't looking at a mystery. He was looking at a warning. And it had just walked right through Sierra Brook's front door. So now I'm curious. If you were in Logan's shoes that morning, A. Follow the kid? B. Mind your own business? C. Call the police? Tell me honestly. I'd love to know. After that morning, Logan honestly tried, to ignore what he'd seen. He told himself, just stay out of it, man. This isn't your fight. But you know how your brain kinda won't let go of something once it feels wrong? That's exactly what happened. The mystery didn't fade. It stuck to him like cold air on damp clothes. So the next day, when Arya appeared again at 6:45 sharp, Logan didn't hesitate. He slipped on his coat, tugged his hood low, and followed. Not close. Not stupid close. Just far enough to blend into the background, but close enough to keep her in sight. And man, the deeper she walked into the town's back roads, the heavier everything felt. The pavement turned into slushy snow, then into packed ice, then into this narrow path behind Willow Bend Road, a place most locals avoided because it got dark too fast, and the trees blocked out the sky. But Arya didn't slow down, didn't even look around. What changed wasn't her. It was the dogs. Titan shifted closer. Ranger drifted back, taking rear guard. Bolt and Major narrowed the perimeter. And Echo? Echo tucked herself so close to Arya's leg you couldn't even see a gap. Logan swallowed hard. This isn't just a walk, he muttered under his breath. She's moving like she's entering a threat zone. And that thought alone made his palms sweat. Because no kid should know what a threat zone is. No 6-year-old should walk as if she's been through one. Snowflakes drifted down from the branches, quiet and soft. But the air felt wrong. Heavy, times 600 moson, like the woods themselves were watching. The path twisted left. Arya followed it without hesitation. The dogs tightened formation again. Logan kept low behind a fence line, stepping where the snow was thickest to muffle his footsteps. He wasn't new to tailing someone. He'd followed suspects through alleyways, basements, tunnels, you name it. But following a child through a frozen forest with 5 K9s scanning the world like snipers. Yeah, that was new. At one point, a squirrel darted across the path, and Logan's heart nearly jumped out of his throat because Titan's head snapped toward the sound instantly. But instead of chasing it like a normal dog, Titan froze, analyzed, then dismissed the squirrel entirely, like he classified it as non-threat. What the hell kind of training is that? Logan whispered. He kept walking, boots crunching softly, but with every step, the silence grew louder. The kind of quiet that feels intentional. Like the forest itself was holding its breath the same way the town did every morning. And then, Arya stepped off the main path, straight into the deeper woods. Logan almost cursed out loud. This wasn't a shortcut. This was the northern stretch of the Willow Bend Forest, a place locals described with phrases like, "Don't go in there after dark." "Coyotes roam that side." "Hikers get lost." But Arya? She walked it like it was her backyard. Echo brushed her leg again, checking she was steady. Titan picked up pace. Bolt circled once like he was clearing the perimeter. Jesus, they're doing tactical sweeps. He ducked behind a thick pine trunk, watching the little group move inch by inch deeper into a place definitely not meant for kids. Then he saw it. Up ahead, half buried under years of leaves and weather, sat an old wooden structure. Not a house, not a barn, a garage. Sagging, forgotten, warped by time. Willow Bend Farm's old maintenance shed, the one that burned partially 20 years ago and was left to rot. And Arya walked straight to it. Logan felt something electric jolt down his spine. Not fear, just that sickening, oh no, 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 no feeling he'd learned to trust in the crime scenes he used to cover. This place didn't just look abandoned. It looked wrong, like it held secrets. Bad ones. Arya reached the door. Titan pushed ahead, sniffing the seams. Ranger blocked the left side. Major covered the back exit. Echo glued herself to Arya's leg. Every single dog fell perfectly into position, and Logan, crouched behind a snow-covered log, felt his breath catch. This is a formation used during covert entries. Who the hell trained them? Arya lifted her hand. Tiny, fragile, pale fingers peeking out of worn gloves, and tapped on the door twice. Just 2 soft knocks. Nothing about it was normal, not playful, not random. It was a signal. And the door creaked open with the slow, painful whine of wood untouched by time. The inside was pitch black. And somehow, even from a distance, Logan felt the temperature drop. You know that weird feeling? When a place looks so dark, it feels like the light refuses to go in. Like the shadows are thicker, heavier, almost alive? That's what this was. It wasn't dim. It was hungry. Arya stepped inside without flinching. Titan followed. Then Ranger. Then Bolt. Major. Echo paused. Glanced back, like she sensed Logan in the trees. Then vanished into the darkness behind her team. And Logan? He stood there frozen in the snow, pulse pounding in his ears. He knew that if he took one step closer, everything would change. He knew crossing that threshold meant stepping into something dark, something he couldn't walk away from ever again. But he also knew he wasn't leaving without answers. If following Arya into that abandoned garage already felt like walking straight into a nightmare, then what happened next, just minutes after she stepped back out, made Logan realize he hadn't even scratched the surface of how dangerous her world really was. Because here's the thing. Logan barely had time to circle around through the trees and get back onto the main trail before everything just exploded. It started with a sound, not loud at first, just this low rumble echoing through the frozen woods. You know the kind, when a truck engine growls on cold mornings? That deep vibration that crawls right into the ground? Logan stopped mid-step. No, 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 don't tell me someone's driving up here. And sure enough, the sound grew louder, closer, fast. Arya had only walked a few yards away from the garage, with her 5 dogs tucked close around her, when the noise turned into a sharp, violent roar. A snowmobile? No. A quad? Almost, but not quite. Then Logan saw it. A beat-up off-road ATV barreling around the icy bend at the top of Willow Bend Road. Wheels skidding sideways on frozen slush, the driver fighting for control. And the ATV wasn't slowing down, not even a little. It was pointed straight at Arya. Logan's heart slammed so hard against his ribs he almost choked. "Arya!" he yelled, but his voice cracked in the cold. But the dogs reacted before the echo of his shout even faded. Titan moved first. God. Titan moved like a missile. 1 second the dogs were clustered around her, and the next, boom! They exploded outward in pure tactical instinct. Titan launched upward in a brutal full-body leap, paws smashing against the ATV's grill. The impact jerked the entire vehicle sideways, sparks flying into the icy air. The driver screamed. The ATV spun. Bolt and Ranger didn't hesitate. They lunged together, slamming their combined weight into the ATV's side, forcing it further off its deadly path. It looked like a coordinated attack you'd only see in military footage, except it was happening around a 6-year-old girl in a freezing forest. And for a split second, it worked. The ATV veered away from Arya, but spiraled out of control. Logan watched in horror as the spinning machine slammed into an old communications tower pole. Metal screeched. The ATV ricocheted, bouncing off snow mounds before crashing to the ground with a violent crunch. Then everything went silent. Too silent. Until... thud. A skidding. A painful yelp that tore through the cold like a knife. Major. Major had been too close to the spinning vehicle and got slammed by the rear wheel. Logan saw him flip, actually flip, across the ice, sliding nearly 20 feet before crashing into a frozen bush. Arya screamed, the kind of scream that rips out of a kid's throat when they're holding something bigger than fear. "Major!" She sprinted toward him. No hesitation, no fear of the smoking wreck behind her. She dropped to her knees, snow puffing around them. Major lay on his side, chest heaving, one paw twisted unnaturally. A soft, broken whine escaped him. The sound stabbed through Logan like a hot spike. Arya's hands shook violently as she cupped Major's face. "No, no, no, Major! Stay with me! Stay with me, boy! Please, please, don't!" Her tiny voice cracked, and Logan felt something inside him snap. A 6-year-old shouldn't sound like someone losing a partner on the battlefield. He rushed forward, slipping on the ice, nearly falling. "Arya, don't move him, wait! Just hold on!" But the other dogs didn't let him get close. Titan stood between Logan and Arya, a wall of muscle and fury. No bared teeth, but eyes full of history, violence, judgment. Ranger paced behind Titan, hackles raised. Echo pressed against Arya's back, trembling but alert. Bolt circled the wreck, a low growl rumbling in his chest. And Arya just sobbed into Major's fur, whispering desperate, broken pieces of words. "Major, buddy, please, please don't leave me too." That "too" hit Logan like a punch to the throat. "Too," as in, She'd already lost someone important. He knelt slowly, hands visible. "It's okay, Arya. It's okay. I'm right here." But his mind was screaming. A child shouldn't be in situations like this. A child shouldn't even know this kind of fear. He scanned Major quickly. Years in crime scenes teaching him how to read injuries. "Okay. Okay, good boy. That's it. Keep breathing." The ATV hissed to silence, steam curling from the broken frame. The driver groaned somewhere in the wreckage, but Logan barely cared. All he saw was a trembling little girl clinging to someone she loved. And all he could think was, how the hell is a 6-year-old living through levels of danger most adults never do? If the ATV crash didn't already scream, something is seriously wrong with this kid's life, then what Logan found next did the screaming for it. And louder, much louder. Because after Arya finally calmed down, well, not calm, but at least breathing again, Logan knew he couldn't just walk away. He needed answers. He needed the truth. And for the first time, he wasn't sure he actually wanted to hear it. So after the dogs helped Arya get Major back on his feet, barely, Logan made a decision. A stupid decision. But the kind of stupid you make when every instinct in your gut is yelling, "Figure this out before someone dies." He waited until Arya and the dogs moved ahead, their silhouettes shrinking as the snow began to fall again. And then he doubled back toward the garage. That awful, crooked, spine-chilling garage. It stared at him through the trees like a half-rotten skull. All right, Hale. Just breathe. You've walked into worse places. I mean, probably. Maybe. Honestly, he hadn't. The closer he got, the worse it felt. The air got colder. The silence got heavier. And the smell, God. The smell. This mix of old wood, wet metal, and something faintly coppery. Blood. Old blood. He pushed the door open with the tip of his boot, just enough to slip inside. The hinges let out a slow, dying gate moan that made his shoulders twitch, and then his eyes adjusted to the dark. My God. It wasn't a home. It wasn't even a hideout. It was a K-9 emergency clinic. A crude, handmade, illegal one. Right in front of him sat a wooden table. No, not a table. A makeshift operating slab built out of plywood and metal braces. The surface was covered in claw marks and stains he didn't want to think about. Tools lay scattered across a shelf. Dull scissors. 2 cracked syringes. An old bottle labeled amoxicillin 2016. Rolls of medical tape yellowed with age. Everything smelled like fear, like desperation, like someone trying their best with absolutely nothing. Logan swallowed hard, stepping deeper in. What the hell was she doing in here? Then he saw the wall, and that's when his breath caught. On the far side of the garage, lit by a thin crack of sunlight piercing through broken boards, were dark, dried splatters across the wood. Blood. A lot of it. Old. New. Layered. Logan froze, tiny hairs rising along his arms. He'd seen violent scenes in big cities, drug raids, takedowns. But seeing this in the middle of an abandoned garage in a sleepy Colorado town, it made no sense. Well, actually, that's a lie. It makes too much sense. He kept scanning, and that's when he saw it. The thing that punched him straight in the ribs, hanging on a rusted nail like some kind of grim trophy, was a shredded K9 ballistic vest. One side ripped open, Kevlar exposed like torn flesh, and across the chest, 3 clean bullet holes. Logan's hand flew to his mouth. No way. No freaking way. Someone had shot this K9. Not once. Not twice. 3 times. He stepped closer, fingers trembling, reaching for the fabric, feeling the weight, the history soaked into it. He turned, and that's when he noticed the wooden board on the far wall. Small, simple, almost easy to miss. On it, written in thick black marker, "Keep them safe." M.W. Logan read it once, twice, again. M.W. M.W. Who the hell is M.W.? And then he knew. He didn't know how he knew. He just knew. Because the moment he read those letters, a cold shiver shot down his spine so violently he had to steady himself on the table. M.W. Marcus Wells, Aria's father. The man nobody in town seemed to know anything about. The man whose absence hung around her like a shadow. And suddenly, the puzzle pieces slammed into place. The tactical dogs, the bruises on Major, the formation, the training, the forest, the secrecy. This garage wasn't a shelter. It wasn't a hideout. It wasn't even just a clinic. It was a battlefield grave, a memorial, a desperate attempt to save the last pieces of someone who'd been lost. Logan stepped closer, touching the marker-soaked letters. The ink bled so deeply into the wood grain it looked carved, not written. And as he stood there, staring at those words, an icy wave slid through his chest. The kind of truth that isn't just sad, it's terrifying. Because no father writes, "Keep them safe," unless he knows he won't be there to do it himself. Logan stepped back, heart pounding in his throat. "Aria, what the hell happened to you?" And this time the silence in the garage didn't feel empty. It felt like an answer. If the words on that wooden board already shook Logan to his core, then what happened when he stepped back outside shattered the rest. Because the moment he left the garage, brushing snow off his jacket, he saw Aria sitting on a fallen log a few feet away. Not standing, not walking, not guarded by the dogs like earlier, just sitting there, small, quiet, like the cold didn't matter anymore. Echo was curled against her side. Major lay stiff on the ground, still hurting. Titan sat facing the tree line, watching it like an enemy might step out any second. And for the first time since he saw her, Aria looked like a kid, a scared one. Logan swallowed, breath fogging in front of him. "Aria, hey, I'm not trying to scare you. I just... She didn't look at him, didn't blink, just said, soft, almost too soft, "You went inside." Logan froze mid-step. "Yeah, I, uh, I had to. I needed to know what's going on so I can help." Arya's fingers tightened in Echo's fur, knuckles white. "You can't help." Her voice cracked. That one tiny sound hurt more than a scream. Logan crouched, not too close, hands raised slightly, showing he wasn't a threat. "Look, Arya, something's wrong. I know it. And I know you're scared. But I'm not here to take your dogs or hurt you or..." "You don't understand," she whispered. Logan opened his mouth to argue, but then she finally looked up, and the look in her eyes... God. He almost backed up. Not anger, not danger. Loss. So much loss it didn't belong on a child's face. "Okay," he murmured. "Then help me understand." She took a shaky breath, wiping her face with her sleeve. Ranger nudged her gently, permission to talk. And for the first time since he met her, she spoke more than one sentence. "My dad, he used to bring them home," she said softly, motioning toward the dogs. "Not all the time, just when they were hurt. He said our house was a safe place, like a secret hospital." Logan's heart sank. That garage, that was his? Arya nodded. He fixed them, trained them, loved them. Her voice broke on loved. He said being a K-9 officer wasn't just a job. It was a promise. Snowflakes drifted down as she stared at the ground. Logan waited, didn't push. "He was Sergeant Marcus Wells," she whispered. "He worked in Denver. He led a special K-9 team. The hard missions. The scary ones." Logan felt the temperature drop inside him. "I've heard that name," he muttered. Wells. Yeah. There was a news report. Something about..." Arya cut him off, voice shaking violently. "It was a warehouse, a really big one, full of kids and bombs." Logan's blood ran cold. She continued. "They called them because the other officers were too scared to go in without knowing where the traps were. Daddy said Titan and the others could smell danger faster than any machine." Her face twisted, not with fear, but memory. "They ran in first. Daddy went after them. They were supposed to come out together. All of them." A tear slid down her cheek. "But Daddy didn't." She sucked in a breath. Short, sharp, painful. Something went wrong. Something blew up. Everyone else ran out while the building was falling. But Daddy turned around because he said he heard one more dog barking inside. Logan clenched his jaw. "He went back for a dog," Arya whispered. "That's who Daddy was. He would never leave them. Time 600 moms." Her voice dropped to barely a breath. "And then everything collapsed." Silence. Absolute silence. The dogs came home, she said. All 5 of them. Bleeding, burned, hurt. They knew the way. They always knew the way home. Logan looked at the dogs, suddenly seeing them differently. Not protectors, not trained animals, survivors. Arya curled into herself, hugging her knees. Daddy told me once, heroes don't leave their partners behind, she whispered. But he did. He left me. He left me all alone. Logan felt his throat tighten, almost painful. She wasn't angry. She wasn't mad. She was broken because the world took someone who never should have been taken. He placed a hand on the snow beside her, close but not touching. Arya, your dad didn't leave you. Her lip trembled. He died trying to protect something he loved. People he loved. Dogs he loved. And if he saw you now keeping them alive, keeping them safe, he'd be so damn proud. Arya finally sobbed, covering her face. Echo pressed into her. Titan lowered his massive head to her shoulder. Logan closed his eyes. This wasn't a mystery. This was tragedy. A deep, raw, human tragedy hiding in a little girl's footsteps every morning. And then Logan asked, quietly, almost afraid of the answer, Arya, why didn't anyone come for you? Why didn't anyone help after your dad died? And if it were you, hearing her story right there in the snow, would you A, hug the kid? B, hunt down who failed her? C, break down yourself? D, stay silent because you wouldn't know what to say? If hearing the truth about her father already cracked something inside Logan, then what happened later that night didn't just crack anything. It shattered every damn piece left. Because by the time evening rolled in, Sierra Brook changed. The air turned sharp. The sky hardened into this iron-gray sheet, and weather warnings buzzed on everyone's phones. Blizzard warning, the worst in 15 years. Stay inside. Stay off the roads. Shelter immediately. People locked their doors. Shops closed early. Lights went dark one house after another as storm clouds swallowed the sky whole. But Arya? Arya didn't have a house to lock. She didn't have a heater. She didn't have a bed. All she had was that collapsing wooden garage. Logan paced his living room like a caged animal. Something in his gut, instinct, conscience, panic, kept screaming, "Don't wait! Go! Now!" So he grabbed his boots, his coat, a flashlight, and ran into the storm. And man, the storm wasn't just bad, it was violent. Wind slicing sideways, snow slamming into his face like gravel, air so cold it burned his lungs. He could barely see 5 feet ahead. The whole world just white, loud, and angry. But he pushed forward, step by step, slipping on ice, grabbing branches, cursing the wind like it was a person he could fight. Because all he could think was, she's out there. That kid is out there. And no one else is coming. By the time he reached Willow Bend Road, he was soaked, shaking, half blind from the snow. His flashlight cut through the blizzard in weak, broken lines, and then he saw it. The garage. Or what was left of it. The front beam had split. The roof sagged inward. Snow piled against the sides like someone was trying to bury it alive. "Arya!" Logan yelled. But the storm swallowed his voice whole. He fought his way closer, pushing against the wind like wading through ocean waves. His boots sank knee-deep in snow. The air tasted like metal, and when he reached the doorway, his heart just stopped. Because there, right in the middle of the storm, was Arya. A tiny shape curled on the ground, shaking, barely conscious. Her coat was crusted with ice, her hair frozen to her cheeks, her lips blue, her eyes half open, unfocused. And she wasn't protecting herself. She was shielding her dogs. Echo lay under her arms, whimpering, breathing shallow. Major, just inches away, barely moving, chest rising in weak, painful waves. Arya had wrapped herself around them like a blanket, her tiny body literally blocking the wind. Logan's chest tightened so hard, he doubled over. "Oh God, Arya, no, no, no." He stumbled toward her, dropping to his knees, snow swallowing them whole. "Arya! Hey, look at me. Look at me, sweetheart. Come on." She blinked slowly, teeth chattering so violently she couldn't form words. And finally, in this weak, dying whisper, she said, I promise, Daddy. I won't lose them too." Her voice cracked on two. And it broke Logan. Completely. Because this wasn't bravery. This was desperation. A kid who'd lost everything once and refused, absolutely refused, to let it happen again. The wind howled, whipping her hair into her face. Snow piled on her shoulders faster than he could brush it away. Logan ripped off his coat and wrapped it around her. But her skin felt like ice, like her body had already started shutting down. Time 7 home. "Arya, sweetie, you can't stay out here," he said, voice shaking. "You're freezing. You're going into hypothermia. We need to move. Right. Now." She tried to shake her head, tried to pull the coat over Echo instead. "They're hurt," she whispered. "Don't take me. Help them." Logan almost yelled, not in anger, in fear. "Arya, listen. If you stay out here another minute, you're not waking up. Do you hear me?" Her breathing hitched. Her head dipped. She was fading. No, not fading. Going. Logan swallowed panic and slid his arms under her. The moment he lifted her, her whole body went limp against his chest. "Oh God. Arya, please. Stay with me. Stay with me, kid." Echo whined weakly. Major didn't move at all. Logan wrapped her tighter, pressing her to his chest, like she was made of glass, and turned toward the storm. He couldn't see anything. Not the path, not the road, not the town lights. Only white. But he held her closer and screamed into the blizzard with every ounce of life he had. "Help! Somebody help! She's freezing! Please!" His voice cracked. His throat burned. His eyes stung from cold and fear. But he kept screaming, over and over, because this time, staying quiet wasn't an option. This time, silence would kill her. If Logan's scream in the blizzard was desperate, then what happened after he reached the town line? Yeah, it was something else. Something raw. Something that stripped him down to bone and fear and helplessness. Because by the time he stumbled through Sierra Brook's Main Street, Aria in his arms, limp as a rag doll, the storm wasn't just hitting hard. It was swallowing the world whole. People rushed out of the diner. Mr. Hanley, the barista, two teenagers hiding from the storm. Their faces went pale. Not from the cold. From her. Oh my God! Logan! What happened? She's not breathing right. Call the clinic. Is that the orphan girl? The one with the dogs? Move! Move! Everything blurred. Flashlights, arms grabbing blankets, shouts, the wind roaring like a monster. Logan didn't remember all of it later. Just pieces. Just flashes. The warmth of someone throwing a coat over them. The sting in his cheeks as he forced himself not to cry. Boots pounding behind him, and underneath it all, tiny fading breaths against his chest. Stay with me, kid, he whispered into her hair. Please, just stay. They burst through the doors of Sierra Brook Emergency Clinic like a tidal wave. Nurses sprinted forward. One grabbed Aria from his arms. Another wrapped her in heated blankets so fast they blurred. Severe hypothermia. She's barely registering. Warm IVs now. She needs oxygen. Where are the warming pads? She's malnourished. God, she's skin and bone. Logan stumbled backward, chest heaving, hands shaking uncontrollably. He'd seen victims pulled from car wrecks, officers shot in alleys, morgue reports, homicide scenes. But this was a 6-year-old dying because she was trying to protect her dogs in a storm. It hit him harder than any case file ever had. Time 1500. The ICU doors slammed shut. Logan leaned his forehead against the wall, breath cracking in the back of his throat. He tried not to lose it. Tried so damn hard. But his knees buckled anyway. Behind him, a sound rose. A soft howl. Then another. And another. He turned. The 5 K9s had followed him through the storm, through the chaos. And now they were lying in front of the ICU doors. Titan lay closest, head pressed to the metal like he could hear her heartbeat on the other side. Ranger curled against the wall, licking blood from the cracks in his own paw pads, blood frozen in the cold, but refusing to move. Echo trembled uncontrollably, her small body shoved against the door like she was trying to squeeze through it. Bolt paced once, just once, before collapsing beside Titan, chest rising unevenly. Major lay flat, eyes half open, still hurting from the ATV crash, growling softly at every passing nurse, like he was promising Aria he'd guard her even from death itself. The clinic fell silent. Patients stopped talking. Nurses went quiet. Even the storm outside seemed muted, because the sight God, the sight was something Sierra Brook had never seen. 5 wounded, exhausted canines forming a living barricade around a tiny girl fighting for her life. A nurse whispered, hand covering her mouth. "They're grieving. They know she's dying." Logan's throat closed. He didn't remember moving. He just suddenly found himself sitting on the floor with the dogs. Titan lifted his head and pressed it against Logan's shoulder, and that simple touch, that silent plea, broke him. A grown man, a hardened former crime reporter, someone who'd seen too much and felt too little. He broke. His breath hitched, his eyes burned, and tears, hot, real, unstoppable, ran down his face. The dogs didn't judge him, didn't move away. They understood grief better than most humans ever would. Logan whispered, voice shredded. "She's a kid. A kid. Damn it. She shouldn't have to." His words dissolved. He pressed a hand over his mouth, trying not to sob. He'd sworn years ago he'd never feel like this again. Never let a story rip him open. But here he was, begging silently for a child he barely knew to live. Hours passed like decades. Every time the ICU door opened, the dogs jerked awake, ears alert, eyes desperate. But no one called them in. No one said she was okay. Snow melted slowly off their fur. Blood dried in the cracks of their paws. They didn't rest, didn't eat, didn't blink. They just waited, just hoped, just hurt. And Logan, sitting with them, realized something he hadn't said out loud yet. Aria Wells wasn't just another sad story. She was the bravest little human he'd ever met. And if she didn't make it, he didn't know how he'd live with that. After hours of watching those dogs lie there like statues guarding a kingdom of heartbreak, something shifted. Not outside. Outside, the storm was still raging, wind hammering the clinic windows like it wanted inside. No. The shift came from deep inside the ICU hallway. A sound so small, so faint, Logan thought he imagined it. A nurse whispered. Her heart rate just jumped. Another called. "Temperature's rising. She's responding. Keep monitoring." Logan's head snapped up. Titan jerked upright. Echo pressed closer to the door, tail trembling. Hope. It didn't come crashing in. It came like a slow inhale after hours of drowning. Then, around 3 a.m., when the world is quiet in that strange, holy way, a nurse ran out of the ICU room, eyes wide and wet. "She's waking up." Logan didn't realize he'd stood until the blood rushed to his head. The dogs rose too, almost in unison. Bodies tense, eyes locked on the door. The nurse pushed it open, and there she was. Aria Wells, tiny, fragile, wrapped in blankets, hooked up to warm IVs and oxygen tubes, but alive. Her eyelids fluttered, like they weighed 100 pounds each. She blinked against the soft glow of the overhead light, and slowly, so slowly, her gaze steadied. Logan stepped inside, hands shaking, breath trapped halfway in his throat. "Aria," her lips parted a little, and in the faintest voice, no louder than snow tapping the windows, she asked the one question that broke every person in that room. "Are they okay?" Not "am I okay?" Not "what happened?" Not "where am I?" She asked about her dogs, her family. Logan's face crumpled. He didn't even try to stop it. He covered his mouth with one hand as tears poured down. Real, uncontrolled, years of pain tears he never thought he'd cry again. Yeah, sweetheart," he choked out. "They're right here. They never left you. Not for a second." A nurse sniffed, wiping her cheeks. Another whispered, "God, this girl." Aria blinked again, turning her head weakly toward the door. And then, something magical happened. The nurse gently pushed the door wider and whispered, "Let them in." Titan entered first, not rushing, not barking, just stepping in like the floor was made of thin ice, like he didn't want to break it. His tail didn't wag. Too emotional, too serious. But his ears lowered, his eyes soft as warm embers. Then Bolt padded behind him. Then Ranger, limping slightly. Then Major, slow but determined. And Echo, barely holding her excitement as she trotted ahead. They moved like a silent honor guard. A funeral procession reversed. A miracle walking on four legs. Arya's breath hitched. Titan. Titan reached the bed, lifted his massive head, and gently, so gently, rested it on Arya's pillow. His muzzle brushed her cheek like a father checking on a sleeping child. Her hand, wrapped in medical tape, rose shakily and touched his fur. He closed his eyes. Bolt stepped closer, lifting one paw and placing it on Arya's wrist, like he'd done 1,000 times training with her father, like muscle memory, like love that didn't die when Marcus Wells did. Ranger lowered himself at the foot of the bed. Major curled against the side. Echo hopped onto the chair, refusing to break eye contact. And just like that, the ICU room cracked open. Tears everywhere. Time 300 mums. A nurse sobbed openly. Another pressed her hand to her chest, like her heart physically hurt. Someone whispered, "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." But the moment that carved itself into every memory was when Arya whispered, "You didn't leave me." Bolt's paw tightened. Titan licked her cheek once. Echo bumped her forehead into Arya's arm. Machines beeped softly. The storm howled outside. But inside that room, it was warm, alive, human. Logan stepped closer, wiping his eyes like he was embarrassed. "Kid." His voice cracked in 3 places. "You scared the hell out of us." Arya gave the smallest smile, weak, tired, but real, and Logan had never, in all his years, felt something so heavy and so bright at the same time. He looked back at the doorway where townspeople gathered. Shopkeepers, teens, nurses, even the barista, all standing silently, crying quietly, watching the girl they misunderstood for so long. Not a mystery, not a problem, not a stray kid walking dogs, but a hero's daughter, a survivor, a child holding more love than her tiny body could contain. And against all odds, she made it. Arya waking up lit the first spark of hope. But what came next? It was like Sierra Brooks' entire heart cracked open. Because once Logan stepped out of that ICU room, eyes still red, throat still tight, people were waiting. Not reporters, not police, not officials. Just people. Neighbors. Store owners. Folks who barely knew her name but had seen her every morning, walking those dogs like shadows glued to her boots. They swarmed Logan the second they saw him. How is she? Is she breathing okay? Are the dogs staying with her? Did she say anything? Can we help? It stunned him. This town, this quiet mountain town that once shut its blinds when Arya walked by, was now buzzing like a shaken beehive. He raised both hands, trying to settle them. Listen, everyone, I need to tell you what's been going on. The hallway fell silent. He took a shaky breath. Arya hasn't been wandering around with those dogs for fun. She's been taking care of them, alone, for 18 months. Gasps, hands flying to mouths, people cursing under their breath. She treated their wounds, fed them, trained them, and she hasn't had real shelter this whole time. Someone whispered, voice cracking. Oh my God. Logan continued, voice steady but broken. And those dogs? They weren't strays. They were her father's unit. Sergeant Marcus Wells, Denver PD K-9 Special Operations. A wave of whispers rippled through the crowd. I remember that name. He died on a rescue mission, right? Didn't they say? Yes, Logan said. He died saving kids, and those dogs ran all the way back to her, hurt, bleeding, half dead, and she kept them alive with scraps, expired meds, and her own hands. Someone sobbed openly. Arya, Logan added, voice thinning, continued his work. She carried his legacy alone. Dead quiet. Dead. Shattering. Quiet. Then it happened. A woman stepped forward. Mrs. Hathaway, the same elderly lady Titan once scared half to death. She walked right up to Logan and whispered, Where is she? I need to see her. Logan pointed toward the ICU doors. She didn't hesitate, didn't blink. She knelt, right there, on the cold tile, bowed her head, whispering through tears, I'm so sorry, baby. So. We didn't see you. And that single act broke the whole town. One by one, like dominoes, people sank to their knees. A teenage boy, a mechanic in work gloves, a mother with muffin bags, a barista with milk stains, even old Mr. Garrison, the man who didn't cry for anyone. wiped his eyes as he knelt. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't staged. It wasn't forced. It was a town admitting its failure and promising to do better. Someone brought blankets. Someone brought dog food. Someone brought heaters. Someone brought toys for the K9s. Then came the police. 4 squad cars rolled up outside, not with lights flashing. They were off duty, coming because they cared. At their center walked Police Chief Nora Caldwell, tall, gray streaks in her hair, a face carved by years of duty. She removed her hat the second she stepped inside. "Where is she?" Nora asked softly. Logan pointed. She walked to the ICU door, stared through the glass, and her jaw tightened. Then her eyes softened. "She looks just like Marcus." Logan blinked. "You knew her father?" "Knew him," Nora whispered. "He trained half my officers, trained my first dog, saved my life twice." And then Logan saw it. The medal in her hand. Silver, heavy, engraved. The Marcus Wells Medal of Valor, awarded posthumously, never delivered because the family couldn't be located. Nora turned to the crowd, and when she spoke, her voice cracked. "This girl has given more than any child ever should. She kept alive the last pieces of her father's team. She lived through storms, through fear, through loss, and she fought like hell." Silence. "But tonight," Nora continued, swallowing hard, "we return what should have been hers from the start." She pushed the ICU door open. Logan followed inside. Aria looked up weakly. Dogs still pressed around her. Nora approached the bed slowly, reverently. "Aria Wells," she said, kneeling. "Your father was one of the bravest men I ever knew. And you are every bit his daughter." She pinned the silver medal to Aria's blanket, hands trembling. "For courage, for sacrifice, for carrying a hero's legacy when the world didn't lift a finger to carry you." Aria looked at the medal, then at Titan, then back at Nora. Her lips trembled. "Daddy would be happy." Nora bowed her head. The officers bowed. The entire hallway bowed. And outside, in the falling snow, the town of Sierra Brook erupted. Not in cheers, not in noise, but in tears. In arms around one another. In whispers of, "We're here now." She's not alone anymore. Not anymore. Hope didn't return. It exploded. Sierra Brook falling to its knees was the moment everything changed emotionally. Then what happened in the weeks after? That was the moment everything changed forever. And honestly, nobody expected a small mountain town to move that fast or come together that hard. But sometimes, broken places heal the loudest. It started with one idea, a whisper, really. "We can't let her go back to that garage. She deserves better. So do those dogs. She saved them for 18 months. Now we save her." Within 24 hours, the whisper became a plan. Within 72 hours, It became a blueprint. Within a week, it became the biggest community project Sierra Brook had ever attempted. Logan stood in the town square, watching it unfold. Builders hauling lumber, families donating supplies, school kids painting signs, old veterans handing over K9 gear they'd kept for decades. Even tourists who heard Arya's story slipped money into donation jars outside the bakery. And then, something crazy happened. They built her a rescue center, not a shelter, not a doghouse, not a charity booth. A full, functional, warm, bright, safe K9 rehabilitation center. The Wells K9 Haven, named after her father. The sign was carved by hand. The walls painted white and blue. Denver K9 colors. Inside stocked with medical equipment donated by 5 counties. A fenced training yard built by firefighters. A therapy room designed by a vet who drove 3 hours to help. And a memorial wall for Sergeant Marcus Wells and every K9 that ever served with him. And the founder. A 6-year-old girl who once slept in a collapsing garage surrounded by wounded dogs. Now she stood at the front of a building that carried her family's legacy. Opening day came. The whole town gathered, hundreds of them, filling the hautante, snowy field with warmth that felt like spring. Logan stood with the dogs off to the side, watching Arya, tiny in her brand-new forest green jacket. She looked stronger, still small, still fragile, but brighter somehow, like a candle relit. Chief Nora Caldwell stepped up to the microphone. "Today," she said, "we honor a man who gave everything, and a little girl who carried what he left behind." People clapped. Some cried. Titan barked once. An approval. "And today," Nora continued, voice trembling just slightly, "we present Colorado's youngest ever founder, Arya Wells." The applause hit like thunder. Arya didn't hide, didn't shrink, didn't look down. She lifted her chin, wiped a tiny tear, and whispered into the mic, "I kept them safe like Daddy said." People broke, just broke. Mothers cried. Old men hugged. Teenagers pretended the wind got in their eyes. Titan pressed against her leg, proud enough to burst. And just like that, the center opened. But the moment that truly marked her new life wasn't the ribbon cutting, wasn't the speeches, wasn't the glittering snow on the big wooden sign. It was the next morning. Because at 7 a.m., a time Sierra Brook once feared, Arya Wells stepped out of the clinic door, her new coat on, braids tucked back, sunlight catching her face just enough to make her look whole. And behind her, perfectly in sync, walked Titan, Ranger, Echo, Bolt, and Major. A formation. The same formation they'd used on the darkest mornings of her life. But this time, not fear. Pride. They walked down Main Street, boots crunching on thin snow. Arya held the leashes loosely. Decorative, really. Because everyone knew the dogs weren't following commands. They were following her. Time 1800 nims. And the town? They didn't hide, didn't whisper, didn't fear. They stood on both sides of the road, rows and rows, clapping, crying, smiling. Someone rang the church bell. Kids held signs. Welcome home, Aria. K9 heroes forever. Even the shopkeeper who once froze in fear placed a small bag of treats in front of the pack, tears slipping down his cheeks. Logan watched from behind, watched the sunrise glint off Arya's medal, watched Titan's proud stride, watched hope rebuilding itself in real time. And at the end of the street, Arya stopped. She turned around slowly, braids swinging, cheeks pink, and she smiled. Her first real smile in 2 years. She pressed her fingers to the medal on her chest and whispered, "Daddy, I kept my promise." Titan let out a deep, powerful bark, echoing off the buildings like a salute. Ranger lifted his head proudly. Bolt wagged. Echo hopped. Major leaned against her leg. The camera, if this were a film, would pull back wide. A little girl. 5 loyal K9s. A whole town behind her. And the golden Colorado sunrise lighting the path ahead. Not tragedy. Not survival. Legacy. A new beginning made from everything she survived and everything her father left behind. Arya Wells didn't just survive the storm. She became the sun after it. Now be honest. If you lived in Sierra Brook this morning, what would you do? A. Cry with pride. B. Calm down until your hand hurts. Rub one of the K9s on the head. Just pick one. I want to hear your feelings.